Welcome to the High Rankings podcast, brought to you by Dispensary-Growth, the preeminent SEO agency for dispensaries. Each episode will dive into the world of search engine optimization for cannabis dispensaries. We'll discuss the latest strategies and tactics to help your dispensary rank higher on search engines and attract more patients and customers. So whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, join us as we explore how to maximize your online presence and stay ahead of the competition in the rapidly growing cannabis industry.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the High Ranking Podcast. We are on episode number 57, which if you're British or spent any time in England, you'll know the significance of the number 57. The rest of you will not. And I know I will not elaborate. Google it. Anyway, what's new in your world?
Yeah, so we're deep in the playoff. By we, I feel like I play on the team. Of course not. Colorado Avalanche, round 2 of the playoffs. Playoff hockey is fucking lit, pardon my language. So watching that, being back on the bike, it's been windy. There's like an advisory here in Denver, like wind for the past 3 days. So I've had poopy pants because I couldn't get on my bike. But so watching the playoffs, trying to get on the bike, and shoulders feeling better, and looking at new places too to move. So timing has worked out. I'd like to move by 4th of July. So looked at a place south of here. Also, I've been looking outside of Colorado too, just for it would be a smart move, like the Kansas City area, obviously because of the market.
Yeah.
I do want to go there if that gets a little more serious. I did go to St. Louis last year and I did not like it. At all. Good food, good barbecue, but would not live there. So I do want to go to Kansas City. So yeah, gearing up for the season coming up. Trestle, I believe it opens up in about 6 weeks. And yeah, so that back to hockey, the Avalanche. They're in the second round. They are playing Dallas, who is very good. I think they're top in the West, or number 2. I think Vancouver is number 1. I want to say Dallas is number 2. They were up 3-0. They being Dallas. Dallas was up 3-0 on home ice against the Avs. The Avs came back and won in overtime. They scored 4 unanswered goals, and they won in overtime in game 1. So tonight is game 2. Tonight, at time of recording, is game 2. Game 1 was Tuesday night, and that will Dallas is not a very seasoned team. They're not a very old team. Colorado is a seasoned team. They won the championship 2 years ago. But my point is that a win like that or a loss like that on home ice, that's a solid kick to the molars, kicked straight to the teeth. They thought they were for sure going to win. They're, kind of running around a little bit. And then all of a sudden the Avs just turned it on and they stomped them for an hour straight. They fucked them up pretty good. So that was a hell of a game. So yeah, playoffs. And it's there's a game on the East Coast. I'm Mountain Time. So there's a game on the East Coast at 5 p.m. And then there's a game on the West Coast, starts at 7:30 or 8 Mountain Time, which is fucking awesome. So yeah, best time of year. Playoff hockey is fucking awesome. Plus Tampa Bay Lightning are out and I can't stand them anymore. So yeah, that's what I've been doing, getting down with playoff hockey and yeah, gearing up for the Viking season. What about you? Tell us about your busy.
There's literally only one thing.
We're busy.
There's literally only one thing to discuss on this podcast this week. Literally only one thing.
I'm not
because
surprised.
only one thing matters. And do you know what that is? Lando Norris's victory at the Miami Grand Prix. The Grand Prix I asked you to take me to. The Grand Prix I told you I needed tickets for. And the Grand Prix you refused. However, outside of that, Lando Norris won his very first ever Grand Prix. And I was fucking ecstatic. I had goosebumps. He was in the lead from lap 33 of 59 or something. And I remember texting you at one point and you were like, what's happening? I was like, I can't talk about it. I will jinx it. I will jinx it. Joe was like, oh, he's got this in the bag. I was like, shut up. Just shut up. Just shut up. Just everybody just shut up. I was so wound up. I couldn't think straight. And then my boy comes through and he wins his first Grand Prix. And it was epic. And that is all we need to talk about on this episode.
What was so epic about it?
Oh my God. he literally hasn't won a Grand Prix. I think this was his 101st or 102nd race. I don't know. He hasn't won a Grand Prix. He's underrated as a driver. McLaren didn't think that their car was like, this wasn't one of the tracks where they were like, oh, we're going to be fire. Outside of that, he got the lead from a safety car situation that was happening, which you can argue, well, like that is luck. Literally, safety car timing is luck. And also the timing of your pit stop compared to a safety car is also luck, right? So obviously that comes into play for everybody. But then there was another safety car. I can't remember why there was a second safety car, but basically when the safety car came out the second time, they ended up all bunched up, which means they're all literally within a few feet of each other at this point, because a safety car, you can only go so fast under a safety car. And so what happens is you all end up bunched up. So he still was leading the race, but right behind him was Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. And you could have had anybody bet any amount of money, and they would all have bet that the Red Bull would have overtaken the McLaren and gone on to win the race, because that is 9.9 times out of 10 what happens. But Lando Norris pulled away from the Red Bull, and I think at one point had a 7-second lead against the Red Bull and won this race in his own right. I do believe the Red Bull may have had some damage because at one point Max took out a cone. Another story for another time. But he won this race fair and square. And yes, there was a little luck on his side, but that you could say that about so many times when a winner has won a Grand Prix. Luck only comes into play if your car and your driver are able to take advantage of that luck. And in this instance, he was, and I was so happy for him. I about lost my shit. I about lost my mind. And I am so incredibly happy. I don't necessarily have a favorite driver. I don't necessarily have a favorite team, but it is very hard for me to not support McLaren and not support Lando, considering McLaren's history. Obviously, they're a British team. He's a British driver and he's a good guy. And you can tell that he's respected by all of his teammates because, not teammates, but all of the other drivers on the grid, because they all one by one came up and congratulated him, or they put something on their social media about it. It was just a great day. And I wish so badly I'd been there, but at least I got to watch it and it was phenomenal. And that's that.
Yeah. Why didn't you just go? I mean, how far away is it from you?
It's like a 4-hour drive, but it's never that simple because it's the drive, it's the parking, it's the hotel, it's the pricing.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's so much more expensive. It would be cheaper for me to fly to England and attend a race in Silverstone, or fly to Austria, where one of my closest friends in the world has a place, and go to a race in Austria. There was something posted on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, and it was showing the prices of some of the food in Miami, and it was outrageous, like outrageous. So
is there a race there every year?
This was the third year, I think.
Third year in a row?
I believe this was the third year, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But anyway,
Still think
it was amazing.
But that's pretty badass. Yeah. My girlfriend said the same thing. She's like, yeah, like this is a big deal. Because I mentioned to her when you text me something about it, and then she texted me later. She had it recorded and she watched it, and she sent me the happy crying emojis. She
they were
like
the
6
best.
of them. And she's like, oh my God, it's so happy for him. This is so awesome.
It was like legitimately. I said, tell me you're watching this race, and you were like, nah, fam, playoff hockey is on. And I was like, oh, fucking rude. And you're like, well, what the fuck is happening? And I said to you, if I talk about it, I will jinx it. I was like so stressed out about it, but it was amazing. It was so good.
That's badass. Good for him. So what do you think he did afterwards?
Oh, I know what he did. He went out clubbing with Max Verstappen. Well, so he was supposed to fly out that night, and Lewis Hamilton was like, nah, you got to change your flight. You got to change your flight. And so I guess Zach Brown changed his flight to the next day. So I know for sure him and Max went out clubbing because there's pictures of it. Oh, also out clubbing, he ran into Travis Kelce. So Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes were there because they are part of this conglomerate that part owns Alpine, which is another team. And
Ah.
so they were there. There's always a bunch of famous people there, mostly people that don't have a clue about F1, but these two actually part own Alpine. So he ran into Travis because there's pictures of him with Travis at the club. I think his teammate Oscar went for a little bit to the club, but I'm not sure. But I know legit he went to the club because he posted something the next day and it was like recovery 1% or something like that. He went out and he kind of
Yeah, good for him. Just get bundled.
it was
Have a good
amazing.
time. Yeah.
It
Good
was
for him.
so amazing. Anyway, that's all I want. Anything else doesn't matter. Okay, so anyway, moving on. We are on episode 57, and today we are going to talk about creating an SEO content calendar for your dispensary, which we obviously, it's one of the general standard practices that we ourselves do. And we've referred to it a lot throughout the previous 56 episodes of this podcast. So we figured we would do a whole episode on it and dive a bit deeper into it. So do you want to explain exactly what we mean when we say content calendar?
It's kind of what it sounds like. So like a spreadsheet with topics of content. So they can be blog posts, strains, qualifying conditions, state pages, state laws, like whatever those pieces of content are. And then you have a timed delivery date, hence calendar, of when those will go live, and basically just planning out when the content will go on the dispensary website. So there's just not a bunch of fuckery going on with the content. Like one of the main 3 pillars of SEO, like content, like that, you're not leaving it to chance, and you're making a plan. So it's getting up the right content at the right time and gluing it all together properly.
Yeah. And I think 2 vital things that you focus on when you do a content calendar. One is your cadence, where you're not like, oh, has anyone posted a blog in the last week? And you figure out you haven't posted in 2 months, and then you go and slam 7 in all in one day. No. You want, to keep a solid cadence as best you can. Obviously, life happens and sometimes you can't, but if you always post on a Monday and Wednesday, for example, it helps you make sure you're on track with that, and also that you have content already prepared for your next post. And also, it's really good for keeping track of exactly what you have done for previous blogs to make sure you don't repeat yourself. Literally, case in point, there were 3 of us discussing topic ideas this morning for something. And I said, have we done a topic on this, like specifically this aspect of this? And instantly we were able to identify that we had already done that, and that here's the blog that we did. So sometimes when you've been working, obviously, with a client for a long time, it's easy to forget what you have already created. And so being able to have that content calendar saves a lot of time of digging through a website or, searching the blog on the website or whatever it may be. It's super useful for that aspect as well.
It makes it so much easier. So like, if you organize it correctly with the actual spreadsheet, like call it content for dispensary XYZ, and then you have tabs on the bottom that are like, one tab should be of your competitors and what they're doing. Another tab will be blog posts. Another tab will be strains. Another tab will be qualifying conditions. If they're, I don't know, if you're like in Oklahoma, another tab will be state content. Another tab will be FAQs, and just keep all of that organized. It makes, oh my God, it's so much easier. And then make the tabs talk to one another when you like update content or when you page link it. It's holy smokes. That took us about 1.5 years to learn. And we've been refining it, but once it's here, it's, oh my gosh, your brain just knows where to go, what to look for, and what to do in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, and I think also you got to figure out what works best for you and what in your dispensary or your agency, whichever, in terms of exactly how it looks, or how you decide that you're going to pass out the information. But you do want to make it so that it's pretty idiot proof. If, for example, your research person leaves and you replace them with another one, you want to make it easy enough that they can navigate their way around, and you don't need a degree in coding to figure it out, which ours is. I mean, to be fair, ours is pretty simple. It's very self-explanatory.
It's a banger.
Yeah, and we use basically the same structure for every client that we have. So we're all familiar with it. Like if we have a researcher who works with one particular client and for some reason we need to pull them over and jump on a different client, all of these outlines all look the same. All the spreadsheets look the same. So it's very easy for them to do that, and then obviously research if we've already hit a topic or not. So it's really beneficial in that respect.
All right, Kaz, since you are hyper type A and like everything structured, how would you put together a content calendar? Like how would you build one?
Are you talking about like for a new client?
Yeah, just for a new client. If we didn't have kind of what we have now, how would you build that?
If we didn't have what we have now in place, are you talking about like our spreadsheet? Like, are you asking me to build a spreadsheet from
if we didn't literally just make a copy of what we have now for a new client?
Oh, well, because that's easy. Be like copy and paste. Ta-da! Well, first of all, I would have to identify what they already had on their website and what was already working for them and what was not working for them. So that's like, your main situation.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably do some competitor analysis and figure out what's working for their competitor and what we can borrow from their competitor, reverse engineer.
Damn.
And I would make sure that I wrote those topics down. We use Google Sheets because that's just how we share information, but whichever, program you would like to use. And then I would build tabs along the bottom, each tab would denote like slightly different topics. So for example, if I'm going to do a silo for strains, I would have one tab along the bottom for strains. And then within that tab, I would have the table of contents. So that would basically be each specific strain that we're talking about. So for example, wedding cake. We just talked about this earlier. Everybody sells wedding cake, right? So it would be wedding cake. And then when you click onto wedding cake, that would take you to the keyword research content outline for, say, wedding cake. And then you would continue that through all of the strains that you want to hit. Then I would definitely have a silo for, say, for qualifying conditions. Like, to me, that's a non-negotiable. Every dispensary should have that as a silo. And then rinse and repeat. Table of contents. So you would have, for example, migraines, you would have cancer, you could have Parkinson's disease, you could have arthritis, you could have eczema. Obviously, you would, on that same page of the spreadsheet, create your keyword research outlines for each topic. And again, they would link. Other ideas would be obviously your state pages for your local SEO, state laws. Again, we do frequently asked questions, I think, for all of our clients. And then I would have another tab for blog posts, which potentially will end up being your biggest sheet on the spreadsheet because there's so many topics to talk about. And then particularly with your blog post, that really is going to be where your competitor analysis is going to come in, where you've identified the pages that are really serving your competitors very well. And you're going to go in and reverse engineer them, do your own keyword research on those pages, create your outline, and from there your content.
Bam. Okay. What tool? Okay. So you said at the very beginning, you would figure out what's working, what's not working. And of course, it's like what's going to move the needle fastest is adding on to pages that are already ranking, right? Like bringing some content on there. What tools would you use to determine what is working and what is not working?
For my competitors?
For your dispensary's website. Let's say you were a dispensary owner and you had an SEO background.
Well,
what tools would you use?
This. We literally just
Tools, other tools, not so much G Suite, maybe like a keyword research tool or an auditing tool, or maybe something that has both.
Yeah, so I would use SEMrush, obviously, or Ahrefs, whichever one you want to use. And I'm not allowed to use G Suite. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, so like G Suite for the spreadsheet itself.
Oh, well, okay. But I can use like Google Analytics.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying I could. Yeah, no, I'd be using Google Analytics and Search Console because that's going to show me what pages I have that are performing for me, how well they're doing. Yeah, I thought you meant I couldn't discuss those either. I was like, wait a minute.
No.
What? Yeah, so Google Analytics for sure, Search Console as well, and probably Screaming Frog just to make sure that there's no issues on the pages that I have up for my audit.
Nice. Screaming Frog.
Yeah.
Screaming Frog's dope.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you would mold that all together, determine what's working, whatever those benchmarks are, what is not working, take like a before and then get your after once the content is up. Okay. I would add
Yeah.
it. Actually, I think
Over
that's
a
all
specific period of time, I think. Yeah.
yeah. I think that's all the tools we use. I mean, Screaming Frog, go to content audit, no duplicate content, not talking technical. Maybe that's a future episode. No, that's pretty solid. Okay. And then implementing it and adjusting your calendar. So like the spreadsheet itself, staying like fluid with, because like life happens. Maybe
Sure
you don't get a
does.
piece of content up that you want on a Tuesday and then it's like Thursday. And you're like, oh my God. How would you adjust the content calendar?
I'm not really sure what you're asking me, how I would adjust it. You mean if I missed a day?
Yeah, like if you missed something, let's say you had alerts, if you had your spreadsheet connected to your tasks in G Suite,
Yeah.
actually, maybe that's the answer, is having
I was going to
tasks.
say you shouldn't be missing it. I mean, like, again, life does happen. Don't get me wrong. But if I'm not available that day, you are. If you're not available, I am. So if a piece of content needs to go up, typically it's drafted and ready to go, and we just have to hit a button. So in that respect, I feel like the answer to that question would be that you always have someone as a backup. You never have someone within your organization who's the only person who knows how to do something, because that's just silly. But in terms of, staying topical, well, one of the points of having a content calendar is that we know that 420 is coming up. So we know a couple months in advance we need to start working on the keyword research and the content so it's ready to go. Now, there may be something that happens. For example, we just discussed last week about the DEA's proposal of changing the scheduling for marijuana. So that's something where you couldn't have prepared for that because you didn't know it was coming. But that's when you would just push something that was not topical down the line a little bit in order to be able to create and post, the blog post on that, topical as to what's happening right now. So that's how I would adjust to those kind of things. Obviously 420 is the same time every year. So is Black Friday. So is New Year's Eve. All of those things you prepare yourself for. But I would also have a couple of pieces of content done and in the bag, just in case, as a backup, and also where you are able to delay posting it because something else happened that was newsworthy.
Gotcha. Okay. So like, obviously try to adhere to it as much as possible. I think also it's important to have an SOP so that if two main people generally put content on the A dispensary website and they're gone for whatever reason, somebody else can just step in and follow the checklist of log into WordPress, go on your posts. If they're drafted or not, let's just assume they're not drafted. You can have a template of a blog post on the back end of the website, import that, and then just plug in the content. And also having a content calendar, you can have previous topics from like a month ago. You can have the main keyword in the body of an outline for a brand new topic, which makes it easier for page linking. And page linking is like a little cheat code to boost traffic quickly. That makes it super easy as well. So have an SOP, and if nothing else, in the SOP, you can literally just have a Loom video. Like we use Loom videos, and it just walks. It's like over the shoulder, first person view of how to put up a blog post or a qualifying condition page or whatever that content is. That's a super easy way of doing it. So like you said, life happens.
And I know some people use Asana, which I know what it is, but I'm not like super clued into how to use it or anything. But I do know there are people who use Asana and that's how they project manage their way through. So I think, again, it's just finding what works for you. It may not be G Suite. It may be something else.
Basecamp or like Trello or Notion or like whatever it is. Yeah. I mean,
I haven't thought about Basecamp in a really long time.
Since the magazine, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to use that. A little throwback. And then once the content is up, we've literally had an episode about this, but once the content is up, how would you analyze it and make sure it's like performing how you want?
Literally Google Analytics, Search Console, all of the above that we just talked about.
Yeah, pretty much.
We just had an episode on, so.
Yeah. So going in, Google Analytics, you can do like content drill down in a respective silo and then see what blogs or what strains are performing and then make adjustments as needed.
Yeah.
Same with Search Console. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Basically for content calendar, just have a easy to use and easy to follow and easy to update spreadsheet with your topics of content, have an SOP on how to post it live, and then just track it. That's basically it. And keep an eye on your competitors too, which should be in that spreadsheet. Run gap analysis, which should also be in that spreadsheet. Yeah, and that's basically it. Continuously optimize.
That's about right.
Day in, day out. Yeah. Did we miss anything? I think that's about it, huh?
No, I think that's about it.
What are we talking about next week? Do we have an idea yet?
No, we don't. I don't believe we have. We like to see, we sit here and talk about how you guys should have a calendar, and then we don't have one for our podcast.
We have a loose one. Yeah. I guess it's fluid, right? It changes.
But some of our best ideas literally happen like at the most randomest of times. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, we should do. Yeah. I remember when we came up with the State of the Union idea. That was like the most random thing. The year review was like random. Sometimes we just randomly come up with shit, and it works. So there you go.
That's how it goes. Okay.
All right. Well, that is the end of this episode. We'll be back next week with another episode. Gosh, we're already we'll be in the middle of May by the time we come back and do another episode. I know, isn't it crazy? Anyway, that wraps up this episode. Again, you know where to find us: Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, give us a review. Let us know if you have any questions, anything you want us to cover. Maybe you want to be a guest on our podcast. We're always open to suggestions. In the meantime, there's no Grand Prix this weekend. Boo. But have a wonderful week, and we'll be back with a new episode in another week.
Peace.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the High Rankings podcast, brought to you by Dispensary-Growth, the preeminent SEO agency for dispensaries. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you found value in the insight and the tips we shared. If you did, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're feeling super generous, we would love it if you left us a review. If there's a specific topic you'd like us to cover in a future episode, or if you have any questions, you can go ahead and find us on LinkedIn or YouTube. We'll see you next time.